Hey everybody, I'm pleased to announce that this episode is brought to you by New Masters Academy, the world's #1 online art resource. The reason why we love New Masters Academy a lot is that a lot of our old teachers from our alma mater are teaching there, and all of their classes are identical to the courses that we learned, and they're taught at a fraction of the price. So if you're interested, there's a link down below for you to check out for a free 7-day trial. New Masters Academy, thank you. Check it out. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Honey and Absinthe After Hours podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Vincent, a background designer for animation.
And I'm Janet, an ex-Disney artist turned independent creator, and this podcast is about all things art, business, and whatever we feel like.
Now today we're going to talk about what makes a good art teacher.
Yeah, the whole point of this episode of the podcast is we realize that there are a lot of people who are looking into furthering their art education or going to art school or whatever, but we realize not all art teachers are great because the best artists tend to not be the best teachers. They can.
Why is that?
Because artists are. There are some who are really good at sponging up information and they're very good at doing the thing, but they might not be the best communicators. I think that's a different skill set. And I really think there are some people who are meant to be teachers. Like, I don't really believe in this concept that, like, if you can't do, you teach.
Those who can't do, teach.
Yeah. I really don't believe in that because I think there really are people who are meant, like their calling is to be teachers. They're great communicators and they're great at teaching. They're great at helping like push the new generation of whatever forward. And that's kind of the thesis of this episode. And we wanted to kind of share our experiences too, because the only way we came to this conclusion and is because we've had quite a few good and bad, a lot of bad teachers.
How long have you been taking art classes for?
Since, I want to say since I was in 3rd grade, off and on.
Right, and this is almost college level, kind of. Yeah, my first college level art class was freshman year of high school. So we've been learning art for a very long time.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to find the right teacher for you.
Of course. Because
not like every teacher has their own way of imparting knowledge, and it's important to have many teachers, many different wise people who can impart their knowledge onto you. And in a way, it's good to have bad experiences too, because how else are you going to learn good from bad? But I think it's best to listen to this podcast and figure out a little bit who to choose to learn from.
So we're going to structure it sort of in this way where, let's say it's your first day of art class or your online art class or whatever it is. Of course, your art teacher, I assume, is sussing all of you out, evaluating each and every one of you. But that doesn't mean you can't do the same.
Yeah.
To know if your teacher is best for you.
Yeah.
Let's say you're on the fence, and this has happened to us all the time, where we had to choose between one teacher or another. So these are just a few ideas for you to think about. That way you know if this teacher is right for you.
Yeah. And I realized too that this sounds really niche. Like it sounds like it's geared towards the art student and whatever, but this actually applies to any kind of learning environment ever. Like if I were to choose a business coach or whatever, I would apply these same qualities. They would have to abide by these qualities that I'm looking for, because this is how I learn best, and it's how I've come to understand myself over getting a degree in college and going through a lot of bad experiences and finally getting to a place where, like, okay, I know what I want in a teacher. I know how I learn best.
Right.
So it applies to everyone, not just the art student.
Yeah, I guess the first thing you want to look out for, let's say it's your first day of class.
Yeah.
Let's say you're sitting down in your virtual class and your teacher walks in. One of the things to look out for, the very first thing I'd say, is to look out if they're good at try to mold their teaching method to you, or at least to the class, to play to their strengths and weaknesses. And we're going to talk about it later. There's a lot of our favorite art teachers always start the week off with some sort of evaluation thing, whether it's a figure drawing class and you're asked to just draw a figure just to give the teacher an idea of where you're at. That way they can cater whatever the strengths and needs are of each and every one of you to their curriculum. It's almost like they're the coach, and they need to look at each and every one of you and be like, okay, my job is in 14 weeks to, make all of you guys proficient at constructing a human figure, at least, in order for you to succeed and progress into the next few courses you're going to get into deeper and deeper tier education. So that's the thing I look out for. And I guess a small little anecdote that I can share was, I think I mentioned in another podcast that I took an animation cinematography class that was sought after because at my school, at my art school, this teacher taught at CalArts, and then for the first time in a while, he returned back to our school. So I sat in, and one of the first things he said that really stuck with me was like, he said something like, and I'm butchering this probably, but he said something like, what I'm going to try to do is give you whatever you need. It doesn't matter if you want to work for Disney, you want to break into this animation Hollywood industry, or you want to be a fashion designer, advertisement designer, or if you want to change the world, I can help you with each and every one of those things. And I thought that was like the coolest fucking thing in the world.
Yeah,
that was the coolest thing.
Yeah,
I thought that was it, and it also gave the class an idea of like the potential in each and every one of them. Like, of course, like sure, like you could just work for animation. Sure, you could work for a big old agency, but there is no ceiling here. And like if you're aiming high, let's say to change the world, that's a perfectly acceptable goal too.
Yeah. And I'll figure out what it is that I need to do to help you achieve that goal.
Yeah.
It's not...
And it's a very like, this isn't about me.
Yeah.
This isn't about me trying to be a good ambassador for the school and make sure that my students produce work that makes the school look good.
Or me look good or whatever.
Yeah. Which you will encounter all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. All the time. But we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But that teacher is an example, perfect example of someone who is a teacher who has the humility to step back and say, this isn't about me. This is about teaching other people.
Yeah. And then versus there's that, and then great teacher, right? Versus someone who says like, they're not going to outright say that their taste is king.
You have to really pay attention.
Yeah.
But some of these teachers make it pretty obvious.
Yeah. You kind of have to have taken their class for a few weeks and listen to how they word things.
Listen to what they praise and pay attention to what they chagrin.
Yeah. But what the overall message from those type of teachers is basically their taste is king, that they have impeccable taste and they know what is good and they know what is bad. They don't care that you like anime. They don't care that like this is the like whatever it is that you want to do, they think your taste is wrong and they are right. And then also on top of that is they have this like singular approach to everyone. So they teach everyone the same way. They don't care about the individual like person in their class and how like they might not understand it in a certain way, they're not getting it. They just believe that it's their way or the highway. They're not going to take extra time or figure out how you learn and how like there's something wrong with them and their teaching technique, which is why you are not getting it. They don't understand that. They just think there's something wrong with you and that you're slow, you're not good enough, or you have bad taste. Whatever it is, that's how you can tell a teacher is not really a good teacher because they're not really doing their job right.
Real quickly, it's almost like I'd like for a teacher, And if I were a teacher, I'd be very hands off. I have my own opinions. I have my own biases, obviously,
Yeah.
but that's not my place to impose those things onto another student.
Yeah.
I love anime. I love street art. I love these types of things, but it's if a student really loves drawing like Glen Keane, fine, that's fine.
Yeah.
When you get into trouble is when someone says, "Oh yeah, I don't like graffiti art. I don't like anime. I don't like this Tumblr style. I don't like this Cal art style." It's just like, who are you to say anything?
I know.
If the student's goal is to be good at drawing, like drawing anime, if that's what they really want to do, then that's what they really want to do.
Yeah.
Whatever. You're not like, who are you to make them, I don't know, work in Hollywood?
Yeah, there are like several teachers that I can think of for my personal anecdote for like a bad version of this.
Oh my God.
But like there's there was this,
Use your words
God.
slowly.
But there was this one teacher
One thought at a time.
that I remember taking his class, and he had everyone, one of the exercises that you do when you develop a visual development portfolio at Art Center in this particular class is you pick an actor or actress. And
everybody is gonna know who this is.
I don't care. But you pick an actor or actress, and you design the character based on the real life person.
You were encouraged to have this actor or actress in mind.
Yes.
Right? Like
you basically need to design the character to look like them. And so he just says that. Pick some actors, actresses, and design some characters. And then I had a friend come into class the next week, and she had picked a certain actress that looked really interesting because the assignment is to design a character that is based off of this actor, actress, right? So you're going to pick someone that looks kind of interesting. You don't care about their acting ability. You don't care about anything. You just care about the look because this is a design assignment. And he basically said that she needs to pick another actress because that actress isn't good at acting. And it was very a taste thing because he doesn't like this actress, and he thinks it's of poor taste to choose this actress for her acting ability that had nothing to do with a design assignment, and made her choose a different actress. And I just felt like this is completely besides the point of learning. This is like your own biases coming out to impose on someone's actual portfolio work.
Yeah, it's I know what you're talking about, and it's almost like the thing you also need to look out for too is pseudo bullshit. It's almost like mind exercise is like, okay, it's good, it's a really good thing to seek out inspiration, it's a good thing to make new mood boards and all of that stuff, but then like to get into the nitty gritty of like, oh, this actor actually doesn't fit or whatever it is. What does that actually do for the student?
It's just when people are trying to impose their taste and their way of teaching on you, you can kind of tell that, oh, this teacher might not be right for me, because this teacher that I was talking about, he's a great teacher for someone else, not me. And it's just like you will eventually.
But you do have to look out for like pseudo bullshit though. Like, look how much stuff do you do in your day that if you really think about could be eliminated, and you would be much more efficient. It's the same thing with people and teachers. A lot of them are infallible. A lot of them aren't perfect people. A lot of them have philosophies that might not fit for you, might fit for somebody else, or just stuff that's like completely useless, like casting for your character. That as much as a great thought experiment into inspiration that is, I don't know how that provides any sort of value to a student.
And like that. It would have been better if he had explained why my friend needed to change her casting choice, and she had already made designs. The homework was to make a design. So I was like...
And to get docked for that.
So she had to redo her homework and be behind.
That's stupid. And just because...
I know. But like, let's say he had a completely reasonable reason for this. The best teachers can explain why and then also show you how it's done properly, but then they're not going to force you to draw or behave exactly like them. They're going to give you the tools and see if you agree or where you go with it, where you take it and run with it.
Yeah, the problem with that is that it's very seductive, and it's the norm for people to want or judge someone's improvement by comparing themselves.
Right.
So whenever a student draws like a teacher most likely will be really pleased by that.
Mm-hmm.
But in actuality, you have to step back
Yeah.
and be like, no, it's not about drawing like me.
Yeah.
It's about what I'm trying to teach you.
Yeah.
You know?
So one of an example that I have of a teacher who's really good at doing something like this is I had a painting teacher who he is at this point like a fine artist. I think he came up in the age of like the Mark Ryden age, like pop art.
What is that, early aughts, like 2000?
I think yeah. Pop surrealism.
Mm-hmm.
And he is very hippy dippy, and he understood that at that age, I was so young and naive. I really, really, really wanted to do either game art or animation, and he was not about that at all. He just wanted to teach me how to paint, and but I mean, he would nag me occasionally about my poor taste at the time, but at the end of the day, he knew that like it's not his job to teach me taste. He knows that will come in time, or if it never comes, who cares? But he was there to teach me how to paint. He taught like the basics, and then he could lecture for like an entire hour or so, and then he'll sit down and knock out an oil painting.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's the best kind of teacher, who can like explain to you a concept, show you how to do it, and then give you the freedom to either do it or do it your own way, whatever. He doesn't care. That's and I look back fondly on that, because he easily could have been my like a bad experience, like just like telling me that my taste is bad and like not being willing to teach me and that kind of thing. But he was very patient with me in that way, and he knew that like this young student is here to be a sponge, and I have to, regardless of my own personal feelings, I need to like teach them and do good by them versus
somebody who just gives you rules and absolutes and it's my way or the highway type of stuff. And these things, obviously, there isn't a teacher who's going to be this obvious about these types of things. These are, you need to read between the lines.
Yeah.
Types of being insightful with your teachers. But again, like the last teacher, not an example of something bad, but something that he said, this class that I sat in on. He said something like, there are no rules to art. There's only consequences. And when he said that to me, it did a million things at once and it reoriented the way I look at things. Essentially, what that statement means to me is that there are no rules. It's art is anything goes. The rule, like the rules are just shortcuts to get to a point. Rules are just like, don't draw a hand like this, draw it like this. But why?
Yeah.
Don't do this in a composition, do that.
Yeah.
Why? Don't make tangents in compositions. Why? Is there a way I can actually use it to my advantage? Like, is that a possibility? If that's true, if that's remotely true, then the rule of tangents is kind of bullshit. It is just whatever you make of it. So that was one thing that I thought about. The other thing that I thought about is it reoriented how I want to learn. So the issue is when you're a student and it's totally fine. I'm there and I'm still there.
Yeah.
I want the information like matrixed into my mind as quickly as possible. So I do like it. You crave the rules. You crave what makes it like one of the best questions to ask like somebody who's really learned in this art stuff is like, what makes a good composition? What makes it good? And then like a lot of people will say like, will generalize and give you rules. Like, don't do this. I like to do this because that like, I like to do this because it's a rule that my teacher taught me or whatever it is. But what the next level thing that you got to do is like understand why.
Yeah.
And when you really understand the concept of there aren't any rules to any of this, what is the consequence of each and every stroke you do? What is the consequence of each and every thing? Or when you cut into something, when you're designing something, you're carving into something, when you're when you're giving something balance, why are you doing these things? And it's that type of thought that you need to have when you're composing, when you're making art and you're having fun. You need to like think deeply about this type of stuff, and it's fun. But in order for you to get there, you have to accept that like as easy and as comfortable as it is for you to just learn a rule or learn learn a shortcut or a shorthand, there's nothing that beats understanding why things are the way they are.
Yeah, because then you'll know when to break the rule.
Right.
Because rules are meant to be broken. As cheesy as that sounds, it's like, especially in something as subjective as art.
So when I immediately when I see people say or tweet or have thumbnails of like, you need to do it like this, or this is how the professionals do it, I go, bullshit.
Because there are people like us who are like, really? Who cares?
Yeah. You have to draw a hand like this. You know how people draw hands? They stick their fucking hand on a piece of paper and then trace it. Are you telling me that's not a hand? It's a hand.
Yeah.
Who the fuck are you to tell me what's a good hand and what's a bad hand? Fuck you.
Because there are different rules for different things. So like anyone who's a teacher will understand that everyone has different priorities. Like not everyone wants to be an animation artist. Not everyone wants to be this or that or whatever.
Right.
So like the best teachers, in my opinion, would always go like, this is the rules for like, if you want to get a job in animation.
Right.
But
right. It's good to know so when you need rules and parameters is when you start getting into specifics.
Yeah.
Like I want to be a designer for film and animation. I want to be a graphic designer.
Yeah.
Then you need like, oh, what is the industry standard?
Yeah.
Like what is expected of you? Those are the right things to ask if you're going to be an employee.
Yeah.
If you want to make art, you got to think deeper than what the ceiling is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because one of the most important things every artist should learn about, regardless of if you're an amateur artist, a young artist, someone who's self-taught, whatever, is you should do your best to learn art history.
Of course.
Yeah.
Very important. Very, very
same with if you want to become a filmmaker, you should do your best to learn film history or music history. It's so important because you will start to realize like your little dream field that you want to be in is a small part of this larger whole. And like for us, we learned all of that in school, and we learned that like how there's naive art, there's fine art, and fine art through the ages, and like I just said, there's pop surrealism, and it's changed. Like the popular art has changed throughout the years from like Warhol to now.
Yeah, there was a class I mentioned another, I think the last podcast, about how I took this inking class at school, and she forced us to draw in a naive style for a week.
Yeah, she
forced us to like make these crude drawings just to explore and experiment with it. And it's so fun.
Yeah.
Like you're really creating shit when you don't give a fuck about anything.
And how else do you breach untapped territory?
Yes,
like how else do you come up with something new?
You think people who want to come up with something new are afraid of drawing hands wrong?
Yeah. People, there are exercises once you become a really overly competent artist where to break you out of this habit of drawing too good.
Right.
Like we had a teacher who would say like he would change the tools up because
Carl Nass is like that.
Yeah.
He tells you to use different.
Yeah, and it's the
utensils.
part of it is like to tap into that childlike wonder or that experimentalness to you that makes art interesting and fun again, especially when you've been a working professional for so long. It's really hard to like get back to that point. But when someone tells you this is the end all be all way to draw hands or whatever, it's like, but for what? For animation? I guess that's what that is for. But if someone just doesn't even put that disclaimer on there, it's like, I question what you were teaching me.
Yeah. And I question what you're teaching other people.
Other people! Oh, shoot. Got too excited there. So I've been listening to this new audiobook called Influence, written by Robert Cialdini, and I really like that book. It goes hand in hand with the previous book that I had finished, The Power of Habit, and this one assumes you know a lot of the things in The Power of Habit, or it uses a lot of the different kind of terminology to describe and data to describe and explain a lot of the reasons why the Power of Habit book people have these habits. The Influence is about how people take advantage of people and their habits. And the book its thesis is kind of like you can either take what you want from this book in order to use it, or you can take this knowledge and not be so influenced by marketers and companies, profiteers, as he would call it, who employ these techniques. So I think both are great things to learn about. And if you are interested in listening to this audiobook, we have an affiliate link from Audible where you can support us at no extra cost to you. And it's audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast to get 1 free audiobook and 2 free Audible original audiobooks. So 3 audiobooks in total. Quite a lot of reading completely for free, or not reading, listening. I listen to it every single time I go running in the morning, and yeah, it's great. So check out audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast, and if you don't know what book to listen to, check out Influence. Do you care about grades? Do you care about getting A's all the time? Because I don't, but a lot of teachers, I actually don't.
I believe you.
Yeah, as an Asian, I don't actually care. I care about learning, but
not all Asians will
I know
be on that boat.
But there are teachers who do know that most people do care about grades, and there are different ways to grade, especially for something as subjective as art. And there are some teachers that grade on improvement. And this isn't to be confused with grading on effort, because it's 2 separate things. It's like we said before, there are teachers that will evaluate you or give the entire class at the very beginning of their class a way to figure out where each person is at, and also to figure out how to teach you what each person needs, because someone who's much more advanced doesn't need the same thing as someone who's just beginning. And in that same vein, these teachers also know that the most important part is to see how much how much will to learn does someone have. And it doesn't matter, most of the time, if you're ready, you got a chip on your shoulder, you're really talented, and you can you compare each other. When you're in a class together, you compare. And you can easily tell when someone's far above the rest of the class. Those people have less room to grow. And the teachers who can pick up on that kind of thing and grade on improvement, they're grading on your ability to learn, not necessarily your effort or anything else.
One teacher I remember who was very good at evaluating the class, it was one of those teachers at our school that I dreaded to take the most, because I heard about how hard
the rumors,
how hard of a class and hard of a teacher he was, how hard of a hard ass he is. And I was really frightened. So the first day of class, I remember physically shaking. I remember getting onto my bench. I remember putting my artboard up. I remember sitting far which is something, which is a move that I don't usually do. I like to sit in front, simply because it helps me focus. But I was like so terrified, so I sat in the back, and the first assignment was to just figure draw. We had a model in front of us, so we drew, and the day went by really well, but it was so obvious to me because he was obviously like looking around, really paying attention to everybody, really like sometimes sitting down with people, that he was really sussing out each and every one of his students, seeing what their strengths and weaknesses are. I mean, of course, one of the best ways to evaluate anyone, that's why we stress figure drawing, is to figure draw. Like how it really is, like how, like what is your salt as an artist? Like, can you sit down and draw a person? How eloquently can you do that? And what is your way? What do you find appealing? And it's all your little decisions that a teacher or your boss or your director, whoever, can evaluate if they're really good. So this teacher was looking around and paying attention to each and every one of his students. And of course, like I was friends with one of the TAs, and he shared a little bit of his thought process. And apparently this teacher writes a shit ton of notes about each and every student. Apparently, bathroom times, which is rumored. Did you know that?
I don't know.
I shouldn't say that then. You didn't know?
No.
You didn't know Bob used to record bathroom times?
Like how
Like how
long?
often you went.
Wow.
He hates that shit.
I mean, yeah.
He does not like it.
I never went.
He does not like you going to the bathroom.
Well, I didn't know that.
This teacher would take a lot of notes about each and every one of his students, and he would pay attention to what time they would come into class, what time they would leave, how many pages of notes did they take, were they taking notes in class, were they not? All of this type of stuff he was paying attention to. And my favorite teachers, and this is a very common practice for art teachers, but they all have their own different specific way of handling it. Almost every last week of class, there's a evaluation. It's almost always a one-on-one thing. Like you're sitting down with your art teacher, and often you have every piece of your work from the first week to the present to evaluate. But I was sitting down with this teacher, and then I caught a glimpse of his notes, and there was a lot of them. He asked me very detailed questions about me and about the pieces I've done in class. And he remembered even the smallest, tiniest notes, or maybe he wrote it down. Either way is great. But like he knew what needed fixing in week 3, what needed improvement in week 10, my spike of growth in week 12, like something that really impressed him in week 12. Like he just knew these things. Yeah. And like this is how much attention he cared. Like he really actually cared about bringing up this team of people. And like I don't want to share his story of how he became a teacher, because that's a fantastic story that I do not want to butcher. But it's basically one of those stories where like the torch was passed from one legendary teacher to another. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So like it was one of those things where like he had his own kind of sort of illustration path that he abandoned because he wanted to teach, because he wanted to accept this torch from this other teacher of his who he dearly cared about. Yeah. So that's how much this person cares about their student. And like when I think about all of my favorite, high school teachers who are, on this level of like actually giving a shit. And that's the standard I hold every teacher to. Yeah. And that's the standard. You should have standards for your teacher, because your teacher has standards for you. Yeah. Like this is this is a dance. Like you're teaching me, I'm learning from you. Like you're loading information into my mind. I want to make sure you're not full of shit. Yeah. That's it. That's all this is.
Yeah. You want to like make sure as a teacher too, that your time is being well spent to teach this person. And this teacher that Vincent was talking about, he's a really big inspiration to us. And like that's the thing. Like you don't necessarily have to be like the best artist in the entire world to inspire your students or whatever, but your actions and the way you behave and the way you teach, they can really like stick with you for a really long time. So that's why like choosing the right teacher is so important, and knowing like having a good bullshit detector when your teacher isn't very good is important too.
Yeah. So if you're learning from any of our peers, I guess, my peers from animation,
Yeah.
I guess a good hot tip for all of you hopefuls who want to break into this industry is to be better than your teacher.
Yeah.
The person teaching you is your competition.
Yeah.
Just take their job.
Yeah.
Like, just if you want to be that good, and if you have what it takes, you can do that.
Yeah. It's different when
It's different when somebody has been working for 30 years and they're teaching you.
Like they don't care.
But if they've been in the industry for 7 years,
yeah.
just take their class, know what makes them tick, take their job.
Yeah.
Easy.
That's why.
And then all these people, all our peers making online courses.
Oh, it's just weird. It's like
what are you doing?
We have thought about like this whole online course thing and whatever, and we just feel so like inadequate in terms of teaching you how to draw, because our teachers are still alive and our teachers' teachers are still alive.
Yeah.
So why would you learn from us? But there are other things I feel more comfortable teaching,
and more unique things that are unique to us. Like I think we would, instead of us telling you how we draw and teaching you how we draw, we'd much rather teach you how we make money, how we do things at conventions, how we're doing things online, because those are really important things that I think aren't in the market and aren't even talked about.
And they're so unique to us, and the way like we came up, like it's hard to find like and you probably shouldn't find like an old person, like an old veteran to teach you how to do social media, like obviously. But like it's different. So it's just I see a lot of you got to be careful when you're picking your online courses.
Tell that story about when you told your teacher you wanted to take this course.
Yeah. I had a teacher who he was a really big mentor to me while I was in school, because he was the only storyboarding teacher at the time there. Well, that's not true. Actually, a lot of our teachers at Art Center were storyboarders at one point. It's just they don't make it known, because that's not what they ended up becoming known for later on in life. But he is the one that's like known for storyboarding, and he really took me under his wing. But like I was really trying to further my storyboarding education while I was at Art Center, because Art Center is not known to do that. And I knew that I wasn't going to be getting enough from that school for what I needed. So I was looking into these other classes, and I asked him, like, should I take these classes? And he was like, who's teaching it? And I was like, I don't know, some person who was on whatever Nickelodeon show. And then they were like, he was like, if you don't know what this person is known for, or if they're any good, maybe don't pay an arm and a leg for that class. Like I think at the time it was like a few $1,000s or something, and I was like, good point. Good point. But so versus like the kind of teachers that grade on improvement, they're kind of testing your ability, how much you want it, how much you're willing to learn, and it has nothing to do with effort, because we're all about, especially at Art Center, we're all about working smart, not hard. There are teachers though that grade on talent and favoritism. These people grind my gears so much, because from the very beginning, when they evaluate the entire class, they hand select their favorites and they nurture them so that the teacher can be praised for how great they are. When that person was great from the beginning, they didn't need their help. They didn't get anything from their help. They were good, and they were always destined to be good. Or maybe they didn't even grow that much because they were already great. And then they just completely ignore everyone else who does need their help, who does need to learn and to grow and everything. And you know what? It doesn't do anyone any favors. It doesn't do the favorite any favors, and it doesn't do the rest of the class any favors. The only thing it benefits is the teacher, because they get their ego stroked, and then they get to claim they made this person, which they didn't. Because what ends up happening is that favorite gets an ego and becomes the star student or whatever, and it becomes really hard for them to check themselves and to keep growing. You kind of like stunt their growth a little bit by doing that to them. And it puts them in an unfair position for all their classmates, because then everyone's gonna inadvertently hate them because the teacher just wants everyone to draw like them. How unfair is that? Don't do that to your students. And then, like, for everyone else, like I said, you don't get what you're supposed to be getting from a teacher because all their attention is on someone else. And then when they grade on something like talent, which I don't really believe in, because there are certain people that are just better at picking up things. But I don't believe that's talent. That's just an inherent ability to like learn better, or maybe they're visual learners or kinesthetic learners or whatever it is, that they just tend to learn really fast. Doesn't mean they're more talent. Like, no one comes out of the womb able to draw like a masterpiece or something. That just doesn't happen. So yeah, we've had quite a few teachers like that, and it grinds my gears because I don't believe I'm all that talented. I felt like when I started college, I had a lot of imposter syndrome, and I felt like I didn't draw as well as everyone else or whatever. But I knew I could work hard. I could work harder than everyone. I knew I had that drive in me. And so a lot of the times when I would come into a class, the teachers who are like that, they tend to not expect much from me. But I would work so hard to try to either gain their attention or do really well on the homework, and it's like a futile effort because they're never going to care about you the way that you want them to care about you, and they're never going to want to teach you, really. And by the end, the good teachers, like the one that we just talked about, like when he graded me, he does this thing where he asks you what grade you deserve. And then it's like his last test, his last test for you, and to see.
Can you explain what that test is about?
So the way he explains it is that if you think you deserve an A, usually you don't. You're the kind of person who has an ego, who assumes that you did a really great job, and you know how what's that saying where people who are dumb think they know everything, and that's like what he's trying to say. Like, if you think you deserve an A, you probably don't. But he said to me especially, he's like, most people who say they deserve like a B or below, they're the ones that deserve an A usually, because they don't think of themselves in that way, and they know that they have a lot more growing to do. So he doesn't tell you this until after you give him your answer.
Yeah, I remember.
And I remember he asked me, and I said, I don't know, maybe like a B, B minus, I don't know, because I didn't think much of myself back then. I just knew that like I worked as hard as I possibly could in his class to like learn as much as I could. And he explained this concept, and then he was like, you get an A. But I also had a teacher who, like, I come across a certain way. And
as you can see.
Yeah. And by then I was already pretty proficient at painting. And this teacher, he assumed I was the kind of student that really cares, who has a meltdown if they don't get an A, which I really couldn't give two shits about. But there are teachers who purposefully give you a B just to check your ego. And in a way, that's kind of good teaching.
Yeah,
good teaching technique.
Every artist, like if you're like really into art, you have a little bit of like a mayhem and madness gremlin. You kind of want to like, watch the world burn a little bit. So I've witnessed that a few times.
Yeah.
I've seen a few, not seen, but I've witnessed peripherally online or people just having total meltdowns. Or I heard from a friend of a friend who's like, I can't believe blah 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 gave me a B.
I worked so hard. But yeah, that teacher gave me a B and then he like really watched my expression to see if I would have a meltdown, and I didn't. And I didn't care. I knew I worked hard.
What did he do? How did he?
I don't know. I think he was just amused. He was just like, huh. So.
Oh, I could have given you an A then.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I don't care about my GPA in art college. Does anyone look at your GPA when you graduate art college? College?
When they hired you for Disney TV, did they ask you your GPA?
No.
Get that.
Art college? Really? I could have failed all my classes and no one would have cared. It's so ridiculous.
Hey, work hard at school, guys. Seriously. You need to learn about history and business. Seriously, it's important.
Work hard, especially if you're paying a lot for it. Just because you go to college or just because you paid money for the school doesn't mean you're magically gonna become the best artist because you were taught by so and so. You gotta like put in blood, sweat, and tears to get there. Because we know a lot of people who graduated and it's harder. It's harder for them because for whatever reason, it's not enough hard work or smart work was put in during their time at school.
Right. Or unfortunately, they're not good at the social aspect.
Yeah.
Which is
there's that too.
So much of
working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are also things to look out for in terms of teaching technique. There's what I love and for me what really helps me out is to put myself in somebody else's shoes. So when a teacher gives out anecdotes, it's really helpful for me because I get to learn through their experience, whether it's a good or a positive, what was on their mind and what I would do differently or would I have done the same thing. So for example, one of my favorite teachers is my perspective teacher. I failed the first time. So I took it again and I took it upon myself. I didn't have to it's a really complicated thing, but like I failed, but then I really, really wanted to retake that class. And at that time, perspective was a very difficult subject for me. At the time, I thought I was going to become a character designer, but through this whole thing, taking this class twice, I fell in love with perspective and I am a background designer for a few shows now. So when this teacher basically taught the class how he hustles freelance, it was the coolest thing. This teacher is so gangster. He basically has probably a whole Rolodex of every theme park design, every set design agency that you could possibly think of. So in class, he straight up was like, "Hey everybody, I'm gonna show you how to get a client and how to get some freelance. Okay, I'm gonna call this agency. I saw that they need work for this, and that." And he straight up called in front of class, basically inquired about the project. He shared his rate. He asked how long the project will last and all these really, really important questions that you're supposed to ask when you're freelancing. He did that all in real time in the class, hung up, and then he basically was like, "That's how it's done."
He got the job, right?
Yeah, of course he did. Of course he did. And this is a teacher who loves drawing so much that he's getting up there in age, but he could have easily become an art director. But this guy loves drawing so much that he wants to be in the trenches. Like he's still a designer for theme parks and all this crazy stuff.
Storyboard artist. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like one of my favorite people of all time. So when I learned from him, he would often share, memories of learning perspective, learning and watching, the greats like Sid Mead or Scott Robertson come up. But my favorite part was when he would share his anecdotes from getting jobs, losing jobs, learning from people, making friends with other artists, just those types of things. Because when you're on this journey, it feels very solitary sometimes because you're constantly drawing by yourself and you feel like you're paving your own path, and especially when you're young and you're in college and you have the pressure of I need to do something and make something out of myself out of this, or else I'm going to be knee deep in debt. It was really helpful for me to hear his struggles and how he got through it. So it's really important for someone like me, especially to learn.
My favorite teacher stories are always when they failed or when they've
Oh
made
yeah.
mistakes.
Yeah.
Because it when you're young too, you think like everything's so high stakes that if you get fired or if some, God forbid, whatever the worst case scenario happened, your life is over. And when you hear stories like someone, your favorite teacher got fired or
Ooh,
or
yeah.
whatever, it's
And everyone
so
has these stories, you
yeah,
know? It's
yeah,
like
like horror
yeah.
stories. Especially like back then when it was so much more brutal for them compared to like it is for us cushy millennials, whatever. But like they really like it's really important to know that how to deal with getting fired, how to deal with like bad experiences, how to deal with all these things, because like you don't look at them any less. It's not like you see, oh my my idol is not my idol anymore for this one like in fact I think it makes us love them more because you realize like, oh, they're willing to share their weaknesses with us, and they want us to know this so that if we encounter that same situation, or maybe we won't because we would have learned from their mistakes.
Yeah, and there's so much to learn when you're at art school. There's so much technical and things that you have to practice, but there's a lot of life stuff too. Like
Yeah.
like I remember one of your mentor talked about being on a film project and having a falling out and the aftermath of that. And that's like, as a student, you want to hear that. You want to know, like, I highly, if you're a teacher who plays their cards too close to their chest, I mean, that's fine. A lot of people want to keep things private, but I think there's huge value to letting your students know where you came from and how you came up, and tell stories that might be a little bit hard to tell or might leave you a little bit vulnerable, because like especially artists, they want to know what they're dealing with. They want to know the life that what to expect, because constantly we're being told like, oh, art, you're going to be a bum, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So we want to know, like, how did you make it? How did you make money doing this creative thing?
Yeah. It's so important. And you know, looking back on a lot of things, it's like I said before, a lot of our instructors at school, before they became as well known as they are doing whatever they're doing, they used to be storyboard artists. And I should have taken a hint just from that, knowing that. Because I would tell them eventually that like, oh, I want to be a storyboard artist. And being good teachers, they would try to mold themselves to me, and they'd reveal to me specifically that like they used to be a storyboard artist, and they'd bring in work from way back in the day, or they'll say snide things like, oh, you're gonna make so much money. And but like not in a good way, like they were like sugaring it. And so
it will cost your soul.
Yeah, so I should have like put two and two together that like, oh, there's a reason why
they're not doing
that anymore. But like, so that's instructors that share anecdotes are really great because you can learn from their mistakes, you can learn from all the good things that they did too, but then they're the ones that want you to believe that they're infallible, that they're gods, that you should worship the ground that they walk on.
They have little groupie posse.
They do usually.
Yeah.
They have little groupies that follow them around, and it like those are the ones that I hate the absolute most, because just like the whole thing about like favorites and talents, like that's when you can kind of know where their priorities are.
And like, there's probably a lot of people who are like, oh, you're only saying that because you were never a favorite. I was a lot of teachers' favorites.
Same.
A lot. But the problem is, when you're a favorite, you know what being a favorite does to other people.
Yeah.
And that's the experience that we're speaking from.
Yeah. It's like, and what it does to you.
Yeah.
Because I remember
what it does to you, especially.
Yeah. I remember like the same mentor that I had. Like this mentor, I really like put everything into like my work for him and everything. So like, obviously, like at a certain point, if you're a teacher, there's no helping your biases and like your favorites or whatever, and you do everything you can to work against it.
Right.
But I remember like I had a friend at the time who was like really jealous of that because she also wanted to be a storyboard artist, and she was like confused why like she wasn't getting the same. So it's like, and she was my friend, so I was like, I can't help that. Like this jealousy, it's just not good. It's just not good for everyone involved with that kind of thing. But with the teachers that do it on purpose, that like pit students against each other,
That's not
and
good.
it's like, what kind of psycho are you? I don't understand that. And why would you? Do you really have nothing else going on in your life that you need to be worshipped by your students? I don't get it. And it's just like we have. Oh God, I have.
Just let it all out. That's what a podcast is for.
There's like teachers who. There's one that I don't fault him too much because he would do that a lot. But there's this other one who was a graphic designer who I hated him because he literally picked on me all the time. He would in front of everyone he was a graphic designer again, and it was like a multidisciplinary class, and the other teachers in that class would have to stick up for me because he was being too brutal to me, and because he would put me down for no reason. He would like say, "Oh, you and your convoluted stories," or whatever. And he would, eventually when we would present our work to like working professionals, he would intentionally forget that I existed and that I hadn't presented yet. He would try to make it so that I didn't have a chance to present to people. and he had his favorites. He basically, anyone who was not his favorite would get picked on and wouldn't get the time of day from him. And I hated him so much. God. But when you have teachers like that, there's nothing you can do. You just gotta keep taking what you can from that class. And in a way, it really helps you in the future deal with, because there will be people like that you work with. Yeah, there will be people like that, just like that in the workplace that you're going to have to deal with. And hopefully that you will learn from that experience, if you ever have teachers like that, how to deal with people in real life, in like the actual working life. So, do you have any like bad anecdotes? Final like worst anecdotes from your entire life of.
Are you asking me to talk shit about my teachers?
Yes.
No, I can't do that. And I literally can't. You guys don't know, but like Jan and I have at least a little bit of prep before every episode, and I couldn't, for the life of me, think of anything. And you really were like twisting the knife, like you must have something. You must have something.
How could you not have any kind of gripes? I know you have gripes.
Like, I mean, like people I've told. I mean, the teachers I've had problems with, I've told obviously are classmates, but like it's one of those situations where I was really mad at them at first, but a lot of the times, like you said, you learn something from the negative thing, negative experience. Like, like for every good teacher, there's always a bad teacher that helps me understand what not to do or what not to be. So that's why I can't like fully say like, oh, this person's horrible or that person's horrible. But you did pull my arm to at least share this story. So in our school, the first 3, let's just call them semesters. We call them terms, but let's say the first 3 semesters are basically foundational, right? And then you start to really pick if you're gonna be a designer for editorial or children's books or record labels or something, or if you're gonna be more of a Hollywood person.
Commercial artist. And
there's a lot of stupid, much ado about nothing competition between the two tracks. It's so dumb. It's the dumbest thing because they're both really talented. But like and then there's tribes and there's camp. So this teacher was really into the design camp, and I obviously was leaning towards the Hollywood camp. And he would like neg me and give me shit for that. And obviously like do the thing that like, oh, all your shit looks the same, and then I'm thinking all your shit looks the same too. And then because it's true.
Yeah, there's styles for every industry. Popular
there
styles.
are in vogue styles and looks for every for Instagram, for animation, even for design and all of that kind of stuff. There's just the zeitgeist of where we're at. But this teacher, because of his bias, would just give me shit and give me a hard time. And it was really, and then I had a default of like, let me just give you what you want. So I felt like I disingenuinely made art that he'd like. And then I got an A. But at the same time, a lot of the stuff that I would like get angry at him for, all the hokey stuff about, you know, you need to go outside to nature. You need to take care of your body. Your body is a temple, blah, blah, blah. Like all this stuff, even though I thought like, oh, I'm paying so much money for this hippy dippy bullshit. Like this is all we talk about. We always talk about like I can't focus if I don't have a little bit of exercise or something. I need to, if I eat like crap, I'm sluggish. We need to sleep early because it's good for our minds. It's good for our foot. Like all of this stuff that he said eventually came out to be true. So that's why I was having a hard time like deciding if I should share this story or not. But if there is one thing that I don't like about art and artists, it's about how much bias really ruins the potential of everyone. Like how much you're willing to be biased towards something, especially in art, is your ceiling, I believe. Like if you are willing to say that you know, this if naive art, or if more like out there experimental art, or whatever it is, if you're chagrining something, then you're just saying that's just a path I'm never gonna cross. Whereas I'm saying, you and I are saying, this is a long life. You should cross paths with as many things as possible if you want to be a learned person, a learned, wise artist. Don't you want to be a learned, wise artist? You know what I mean? So that's a lot of what I think about. It's like, I wish people wouldn't be so biased. Like this teacher, I know our school is structured like this, but like, do you really have to play camps like this? Do you not have friends or anything going on outside of this school for you to really get invested into this this rivalry thing? And that's a lot of teachers too. And like, it stems from the problem, from every problem I have with an artist, it's always stemming from bias. Always.
It's I think it comes, like most things, I think it comes from insecurities. And
I didn't say that, but I agree.
This is like classic Janet phrase. Like I say this a lot to Vincent, but I think most problems with people come from their trying to assert some kind of like dominance or hierarchy. And I'm starting to notice, like, because we are artists, there tends to be a lot of it in this community, which irritates me because I don't want to believe that artists were always like this. But when I see that, and I chalk it up to that, every single teacher that I've had that didn't have that were supremely confident people, supremely confident in themselves, and also found value in what their peers were doing, who are like, they might not want to do that or even like it, but they appreciate it, and they understand that it takes a lot of hard work and talent to do what they do. And it doesn't do anyone any good to put down someone else just to make yourself feel better. The whole, like, there was a teacher that we had in school who was all about entertainment arts and Hollywood and animation and all that kind of stuff. And especially early on, I really got upset watching him put in the same camp, just like how the design teacher was kind of putting down the entertainment students. This teacher was doing the opposite in his class. He was like propping up all the entertainment students, and he was putting down the design students. And what I was seeing from these design students, they're really, really talented. And sure, it looks like their art is a lot more naive than like being able to accomplish these crazy anatomical drawings or whatever. But I thought they were so talented because I couldn't do what they were doing. I didn't have that in me.
Often you ask, like often the thing like these teachers who chagrin the design people or vice versa, their pet thing to say about the other thing is, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. So like, if you're understanding it, if you don't understand it, why are you knocking it?
Yeah. And I would watch him do this, and it's like not a good thing to put down a young person for what they do, regardless. Like they're being just trying to just be creative.
They're paying so much money to just try to be creative.
And try to like figure this thing out. And all like, what good is it to tell them that your work sucks stylistically, taste-wise? Yeah, that's different. Not like, oh, you're not
no word about execution at all. Yeah. Just like, oh, you chose that. Oh, that's gross.
That's wrong. Yeah.
Like, oh, you paint like Thomas Kincaid. Gross. Where it's just like, well, I mean, like that person could have a really good career in greeting cards.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. You don't know.
Making calendars. I don't know. And so I saw that, and it just, every time, it's like I have a little tally in my head. Every time like someone checks something off, like it's like, oh, strike 1, strike 2, strike 3. Okay, like, my respect is gone.
That's how you students should see it, because that's how a lot of our teachers see it.
Yeah.
You have strikes against your teachers.
Yeah, but like my personal memorable bad experience from school was this one teacher very early on. She had favorites again, but not only that, she was very young, and she was very buddy with her TAs, and she always joked around, and it was very like cliquish, like no one was allowed in this clique, and which is fine. I've had dealt with people like that all the time. It's like, whatever, what do I care? But I had this friend, she was a fob. She had this really heavy Chinese accent, and she would get bullied by them all the time in front of the entire class for her accent. It had nothing to do with her work. It had nothing to do with anything. And I thought, especially having been bullied growing up from a very young age, it infuriated me, because I was like, we're adults in college. Why would you do that? And I remember one day it was so particularly bad that she cried. And like, I've seen people cry in class before. We went to art center. It happens all the time. I've seen teachers tell people that like, you should drop out because you're not good for illustration or whatever it was. And I've seen people cry, but I'd always be understanding of why the teacher said what they said.
Yeah, often like I know a teacher who's notorious for making that move, and it's a very important move to make.
Yeah.
This teacher was my figure drawing teacher, I guess, the very first one that I had in college, and he was notorious for, if he really felt like it, because he's a term 1 teacher, if he really saw it, like, and then you can't do this, he'll tell you, don't, like, you need to drop out.
Yeah.
And at first you think that it's like, that's mean and that's like a dick move, but like, he really approached it from like, you're paying so much money.
Yeah, this is for your own good.
And you have to commit so hard to this.
Yeah.
And I've seen you. You're not ready.
You're not ready.
Yeah. You're not ready, or you're not there, whatever it is, and you need to not be here.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where it's just like, well, that's a teacher who actually gives a shit. Who
cares? Yeah.
Because he doesn't care about the tuition. You're gonna suffer here if you don't shape up or leave.
Yeah. So I've seen people cry all the time, but this time it was different, because it had nothing to do with someone's art or why we are all here. It had nothing to do with a teaching moment or whatever. It was just mean. It was just mean-spirited bullying from a teacher, which I thought was so inappropriate. And for her to kind of get her TAs in on it as well, like to try to get other students in on it, to bully my friend. And till this day, like that moment made me lose all respect for her. I was just like, this is so inappropriate. First of all, you shouldn't, any teacher that like befriends their TAs and their students in that way, to like be best buddies with or whatever, your priorities are wrong. You're not there to be friends with your students. when you develop a relationship with them eventually, sure, but like not in a classroom setting and not as a favoritism thing, and then to make like a race issue essentially about something like I was just like this would not fly in 2020. That's so inappropriate, and I couldn't take her class seriously anymore. That was by far one of the worst teachers I think I've ever had. And yeah, it just makes me sad to even think about it. Like other teachers I can gripe about because they just make me angry for their actions, but at the end of the day, I know that they were trying to teach. They were trying to be a good teacher, regardless of how much I disagree with them or whatever. But this instance was just like, you are just a bad person. I just don't agree with anything about you.
Oh, it's a really bad one.
Yeah.
If I'm going to share a good one, you talked really briefly about the teacher where he asked you what grade you deserved.
Mm-hmm.
I had a hard time. That's the same class that I took, and I was like shivering the first week. So I did the best that I could. As far as I could summarize, I remember I was kind of strong the first third of the class. The middle, I wasn't doing so good. I think I was getting fatigued. So I was really getting tired, and my performance wasn't very good. But then towards the end, the last two, the class actually goes up to 12 weeks, and the class, he allows you to redo your assignments for the last 2 weeks, right? Isn't that how he structures it? Yeah. So I think out of, let's say, the 12 assignments, I had 3 I did that weren't so good. They were like 7 or below out of 10, let's say. And I remember the worst part was my final was not good. I worked really, really hard on the final. The painting just wasn't there. But it was like the painting wasn't bad. That was like a C+, B-. The worst part was the presentation. It was just not good. So me being just like really defeated because I screwed up basically the final. I was like, if I have 2 weeks, and if I just take care of all the other classes, because the best part about some other classes that kind of loosens up, most of the classes loosen up towards the end. A lot of classes are structured like this, where like the last 2 weeks of class is catch up or some sort of taking everything you've learned and applying it into a project type of thing. But for this class, for the 2 weeks, I redid 3 paintings. And these were acrylic paintings. They took a while. And then, not too bad. I think 2 of them were, one of them was a Sargent copy. 2 of them were still lifes. One of them was a narrative still life. So that's like another added layer of shit I had to take into consideration. When I redid the project, my final project, I made sure the presentation was pristine. I made sure the painting was at least a better improvement, at least a B, at least a B+, like at least get me there. Added with the better presentation, I knew it was better. And simply by growing, redoing the previous still life and the Sargent copy was easy because I just had more miles ahead. So when it was time for Bob to evaluate me, I showed all of my paintings as well as the redos, the 3 redos. I think he was really impressed. I genuinely do. He must be so good at poker.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because he has such a,
blank
face.
Yeah.
But he definitely gave me a few more nods than I expected when he saw that I redid the paintings. And like usually people just redo 1. They usually only have time for 1.
Yeah.
But I did 3 because I really, really was like, this sucks that I screwed up because I was tired. I screwed up because I didn't manage my time well. And I have this opportunity, this 2-week opportunity to fix some of my wrongs, at least some of them. So I did, and he acknowledged that. And then when he asked me what grade I deserved, I knew what that was about. I didn't know that he did. I knew that I'm not sure if I knew that he was going to do that, but I knew that was a very him thing to do.
Yeah.
So when he asked me that, it didn't catch me by surprise. I just really had to think about like what I honestly truly wanted.
Mhm.
And then I shamelessly said I want an A- because like I told him something like I'm trying to like make this count, like something like that. Like I'm trying to
Yeah.
make this matter. I'm trying to make like everything, like the sentiment was like I'm trying to use everything, every single ounce of time I can to make this work.
Mhm.
So I think I deserve an A-. And then he was very like, yeah, sure. like he didn't give me the whole spiel about, you know, like humble and being humble.
Yeah.
I actually was like it took me being like humble to say I can do fucking better than this. I
Yeah.
can do better than this, and doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that was the whole like idea. And I think that's like, I think that's what he saw in me, because it was very obvious that like I didn't have to do this. I probably could have escaped that class with a B.
Yeah.
Like I was a very like B student, but like I said before, this was the class.
Yeah.
This was the class that everyone fears.
Mhm.
This is the class that everyone at our school avoids. If you're an illustration,
Yeah.
if you're not a glutton for punishment like we are.
Yeah.
But that was very like cool. Like it's really cool to see someone who just like I said, like understood me and understood my path, understood for where I was at.
Yeah.
And I told him, I remember telling him like, I was so scared of you in the first day of class. I was so scared of you, but now I'm really happy. I'm here.
Yeah.
Something like that. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm happy where I'm at. And I'm happy I took this class. And I think I said something like I didn't have to. I
Yeah.
didn't have to do this. I could have taken Sean's class or something. But I knew this was a good thing for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite anecdote.
Yeah, we still like see him from time to time. He
We
used to do workshops over at Disney. And he's a huge inspiration to us. He still gives us words of encouragement. We think about him all the time. I remember, I didn't remember this till just now, but I forgot exactly what he said to me that day when he gives us our grades. But I remember something like insinuating that I remind him of him, because he used to be at the time I was very shy and quiet.
Insinuating that you remind
him of him.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because if there are actually like early videos of him when he was in school, because Art Center used to do these like video promotional things, or I forget what they are, but I remember seeing him and how much he'd changed since like when he was a student at Art Center versus when he became a teacher. And it really, like, he was just as shy and quiet as I was. And he always tells the class that it took him a long time, a lot of practice to be able to talk for like 5 hours straight. And
he talks like a pro.
Yeah.
He's one of those, he's meant for this. This is
Yeah.
why he was put on this reality for,
Yeah.
to teach, to be a
And-
wise teacher for us.
Yeah. So like there are a few teachers that I think about all the time from our time, my time in college, and he's one of them, one of like 3 or 4 that I always think about, because like they're the ones that like inspire you. That like after that class, I remember just hearing his voice in my head all the time,
Yeah.
just reminding me of things.
Yeah.
But my good experience is this. Again, my mentor. He, like I said before, like I didn't feel like I was worthy, like worth it to have been accepted. One of the things I thought at the time, and I still think, was I was accepted because they wanted my tuition money, not because I was talented enough to
Oh,
get
of course
in.
they will. Of
Yeah.
course.
And so I had that burden
Yeah.
on me, and I all the time, again, like I felt like with a lot of these worser teachers, they didn't think much of me, so I felt all the time that I had to prove everyone wrong. I had this like intense desire to prove everyone wrong, like this anger, burning anger inside of me. And with him, it's not like, he always starts his class with this speech that he is here to serve you.
Right.
That again, like all the best teachers do this. They start the class with this speech. I'm like, I am your servant. I'm here to serve you. Whatever you need from me, I will do my best to help you. And I remember like when I he was the first teacher I experienced who did that. Sure, there were other ones like the previous teacher we talked about, who were really inspirational, but in a different, like, hard ass kind of way. But this is like the kindness, um, was different, and the care was different. And I remember like, oh, I storyboarding just seems to suit me better. And he taught storyboarding, so I really like gravitated to him, and I like did everything in my power to like be his mentor and to like get him to take me under his wing, and I like did these independent studies with him and everything. And like he's the first teacher that made me feel like I was like worth something. Like he truly believed in me. And he always knew, he always says this. He always says, I always knew you would do it. I always knew you would do this thing. And like especially when things would get hard, like we would have art center isn't known for group projects or anything. It's different from, for example, CalArts, or when your teamwork is like integrated in
Your curriculum.
yeah. We at the time the school was experimenting with a lot of things that required like interdisciplinary talents or group projects, and I really struggled. I was like selected to be like the team leader, but not really given any of the authority of being a boss because I was just a student just like everyone else. So I had a lot of struggle learning leadership and how to gain respect from my fellow classmates, and while also being kind and like watch my words properly, and a lot of the stuff that's difficult when you're like a young 20 something. And I remember going to him and just like crying, just like I feel like I lost my friends. I feel like I'm not cut out for this. And I remember him saying like, "Oh, I know you'll be a great director one day." I'm gonna cry. But I just hope that other people will be able to have that kind of mentorship one day, because I think everyone deserves it. Yeah.
No, I believe you. I never was that close to a teacher because I don't know. I just never felt like I felt comfortable being that close with a teacher. But when I look back at all the teachers who have really affected my life and the way I think, uh, I think to my high school English teacher, my English honors teacher, and I think to our illustration teacher, who we basically talked about for ad length in this episode for like probably hours. I think about how they really improved the way I think and really challenged me to achieve the things that I thought I couldn't achieve. And it takes a certain someone to truly believe in somebody. And it's easy when you believe in somebody because it's obvious. Because like
Yeah.
they so obviously draw well. They so obviously are technically proficient at this. But it's like this spark that you see in younger artists, or this thing that you see in your directors or your coworkers, where you're like, you are on a different level.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with skill. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with your technical prowess. It's just your the way your mind works.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff where it's like if a teacher puts all their eggs in that basket, it's like, oh, you have a special person.
Yeah. I've definitely like, we have only been doing this for a very short amount of time, but we've been reached out by like a lot of people who some want us to mentor them, some just want advice, some I don't know. But
one
it,
wants
like
you to be the face of their company.
oh God. But there I am starting, like, through this experience, we're starting to figure out what that is. Like, the teachers who seem to magically have the eye, it's like they can predict who's going to be successful by the time they
And
graduate
it's
or
never
whatever.
like what they can do here. It's
Yeah.
always like what's
Yeah.
in their head. Yeah.
And then the teachers who are just completely wrong. But there was like a few people who I feel like we've met either through conventioning or people who've come up to us where their questions are so intelligent
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
their way they think is really interesting, and a lot we have like answers that we give all the time to the questions that we get all the time. But there are some people who I see and I'm like, oh, they're gonna be fine. They're gonna make it one day, and they do because they never come back because they're making it somewhere. Yeah, I hope one day we could be just as inspirational and influential to our future students.
Yeah, what you said really is true. Like it everyone needs someone who believes in them. And when you're a certain type of artist, or when you're an artist, there, a lot of the times the story is that your parents just aren't down for it.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of, like I said, we're really rebellious and we really want what we want. But when you finally meet that person who genuinely believes in you because of what you bring to the table, of course they believe in your art, of course they believe in your abilities, but it's when someone sees through all of that and sees the potential in you, that's when you have a really special person teaching you.
Yeah.
And like there's so many people trying to teach you.
Yeah.
Especially in art, there's so many people trying to teach you and charge you money
Yeah.
for learning art, because it is such a magical, amazing, beautiful thing. But like I said before, you really have to be careful and think critically about who you're learning from. These people are literally logging information into your mind, and you have to seek them out sometimes. They're not, and oftentimes, you know, they're really hard to find, especially these days when everybody's literally telling you that they can teach you how to draw. Yeah.
Oftentimes I feel like the teachers that are the best ones don't want to teach you.
Yes.
Or they'd rather be doing something else.
Yeah. No, everyone has their own way, and like it's important for every artist to find their own way, but like it's nice to have people to help guide you and believe in you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, even if they like, I remember there's this one teacher that I think about all the time recently because I like all his words are recontextualized to what I'm doing now, and it's like he predicted all of this. It's like he always knew that I was not meant for entertainment, that like there's this rebellious streak in me, and it's like he was always trying to push me towards this other direction that I'm currently on now, to like I am better than this, better than trying to chase after money and Disney and all this stuff.
The clout,
Yeah.
as they say, as the kids say.
Yeah. But anyways.
Yeah, we hope you enjoyed that, because you know, teaching is something that, like, as Janet Leigh famously always says, she hates teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
Because, you know, a lot of them, well, in your eyes, are snake oil salesmen.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you really, really have to earn my trust in order for me to listen to you. In order for me not to listen to you, I've had too many bad experiences where I was too naive and I listened to like bad teachers or was never like given what I felt like I deserved for all the like hard work I was putting into their class or whatever, and they just blew me off
because of stupid reasons like biases,
favoritism,
or just they just don't plain like you.
Now sometimes it's just the personality thing, and they don't like
that's
you.
life for you though. People will like you, people hate you, whatever.
So now it takes a lot for me to trust a teacher. It takes a lot for someone to earn my trust, because I feel like they do need to earn it.
Yeah, especially those of you who are paying a lot of money to be in school. this teacher that we talked about would always rag on us. You're paying so much money to
Yeah.
be here. Like you didn't come to class. Like no excuses. No
Yeah.
excuses. Like you're paying so much money to be here. Like the you being gone is money out the window. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So if those are the stakes, right? So if those are the stakes, then be very cautious about who is teaching you guys. You know?
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
And, once they have earned my trust, like you can see that I sing them praises.
Ooh.
Like
One thing you need to watch out for is to watch your own biases.
oh yeah.
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 Be careful. Don't like just write off a teacher because you think you know what's best.
Yeah.
That's different. That's your own bullshit biases
Yeah.
getting in the way. Do not do that. It's one of those things where like you think critically in a movie. You think why did this director choose what they chose, right?
Mhm.
It's the same thing with teachers. Like why did they choose to structure their class like this?
Yeah.
Why did they organize their class like this? Like it's that time of stuff. Like imagine if you would want to be a teacher someday. A lot of you, I'm sure, down the line, you've thought at least like if you learn enough that you would want to pass down what you want to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So you should be, in terms of just being, in terms of thinking meritocratically, to
Mhm.
just pay attention to your teachers in terms of, how they behave, what you can learn from them, that kind of stuff. But don't be like, I know what's best for me, and you don't know anything.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah.
That's different.
You start
Don't let your own biases get in the way.
start with like a blank slate as best as you can.
Yeah, of course.
And
Give them the
then-
benefit of the doubt as much as
Yeah.
you can. Of
and
course.
then, like whether the art and the technical stuff is another thing. Most people are great at that. It's the personal weird bullshit stuff like style and whatever weird like do this not that is kind of like you should be able to sense that stuff on
Yeah.
your own. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's it for this episode
I hope
of
you enjoyed
the honey.
I hope you enjoyed Janet's griping.
Oh,
It was really intense.
was it?
Yes.
Anyways, that's it for this episode of the Honey and Absinthe podcast. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts. We upload these podcasts every Monday. Check out Honey and Absinthe on Instagram and TikTok. Go to honeyandabsinthe.com for our merch. I'm wearing the fight shirt today, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.